This is a Brodie Section 8 from probably 2012, based on similar spec bikes on Brodie's website. Not sure where the name Section came from, but the 8 references the internal 8-speed hub in the back. The 8-speed hub provides exceptional reliability and easy shifting, which I'll touch on more later. The bike came to me in overall very good original complete condition, but a few areas of the bike will need attention. The original gear shifter lens is quite weathered, and I just happen to have a new set of Revo Shift 8-speed shifters, which will work great on this bike. The old shifters had an integrated brake lever, so I will need to install a new set of long pull brake levers compatible with disc brakes in the front and the roller brake in the back. The chain has a fair bit of slack, and I can see that the wheel is already moved to the rear of the dropouts, so most likely the chain is stretched and will need to be replaced. The internal hub works great, so just some routine maintenance is in order. To remove the rear wheel from the bike must be in first gear, and then simply use a 2mm Allen key, insert it in the hole facing directly to the rear, and then pull down and release the shifter cable. For the other side, the roller brake cable tension needs to be released, and then the cable can be removed from the drum. Next, remove the nut and bolt from the brake arm support, and the wheel is ready to come out. The non-turning axle washers are specific for the right and left, and are marked to ensure they are installed on the correct side of the bike. The yellow one goes on the left. With the wheel out of the bike, I'll remove the roller brake assembly and set it aside for now, and will complete the maintenance on the hub. Shimano recommends to disassemble the inner unit and soak it in a specific hub oil for about 90 seconds, and then allow it to drip before reassembling. But since this hub probably hasn't had any maintenance in a number of years, I'm going to clean the inner mechanism with mineral spirits to remove any dried out old grease that the 90-second soaking probably will not remove. So first I'll fix the drive side axle flats into my vise so I can remove the lock nut, being very careful not to damage the axle threads. With the non-drive side lock nut removed, I'll flip the axle, unlock and remove the gear selector. With the snap ring removed, the sprocket can be taken off. Note the orientation of the sprocket. Next, the cover and seal can be removed. The complete mechanism will now just slide out. Inspect and clean the hub and its bearing races. There shouldn't be any scratches or wear on the surfaces. Next, I'll remove the snap ring, and then the inner part of the mechanism can be removed. I've got all of the parts cleaned, blew them out with my air compressor, and then let them sit overnight to ensure everything is dry. Check the mechanism. There should be some play, and the gears should spin freely. When I manually turn the gear selector plate, you can see how the pawls move on the shaft, which is what determines which gear the bike is in. With all of the parts cleaned up, I'll lubricate the inner part of the mechanism with SAE 90 gear oil and use a waterproof high-quality grease on the gears and bearing races. Again, I'll use the SAE 90 oil on the outer part of the mechanism's bearing races and use lots of grease on all of the gear parts. When putting together the two parts, you really shouldn't need any force, as there is a groove on the inside of the outer part of the mechanism which aligns to the pawls. If the mechanism is together properly, the snap ring will fit in the groove easily. Next, I'll slide the mechanism into the wheel and lay it down on my workbench with the non-drive side facing up. Grease the bearing and insert it, noting which way the bearing faces. Then I'll fit the cone and lock nut. You shouldn't feel any play in the axle, but it should still spin freely. Make any required adjustments. Flip the wheel and install the large seal. Then the flange, sprocket, and cap, noting which way up the sprocket and cap should be. Followed by the snap ring. Next, install the cassette joint, noting the orientation of the red dots, followed by the fixing ring, noting the orientation of the yellow dots, and then turn the fixing ring to lock things into place. With the hub mechanism completed, I'll move on to the roller brake maintenance. I found several tutorials on overhauling a roller brake, but in checking the Shimano spec sheet for the BR IM70R roller brake, it states the roller brake should never be disassembled, and if it is disassembled, it will no longer work properly. I'm not finding any information as to why Shimano states this, but when it comes to safety, I'll order up a new replacement unit. Next, I'll move on to cleaning up the wheels and checking the tires. These tires will need to be replaced as they are badly cracked. The wheels really didn't need much in the way of truing, but with some tweaks, the new tires are ready to go on. I've got the old grips removed and noticed that the brake cable is seized in the housing. With all of the rust on the brake cable, no wonder the rear brake wasn't working properly, and I'll replace with new ones. I've got the old shifter and brake levers removed, and will detail the frame and complete paint touch-ups. I like to use Tamiya enamel paints for touch-ups, as they are easy to find from hobby shops and offer great color matches. For this Brodie, I'll also use a spray bomb that I had custom mixed for a different build, but matched this bike pretty darn good. I also used the same spray bomb on the chain guard too, as it was pretty scuffed up. As I mentioned, I'll be installing a new Nexus 8-speed shifter, as the old one was quite weathered. This meant the integrated brake handle would need to be replaced with a standalone brake handle. Although Shimano recommends a short pull brake lever for the rear roller brake, the front mechanical disc brake best works with a long pull brake lever. Shimano's solution to the different kind of levers required was to use mode positions, the V position being used for the front disc and the CR position used for the back roller brake. Some folks have commented that using the CR position in the back can lead to the rear locking up easily, and using the rear brake in the V setting may make rear lockups less likely. So the Avid levers I'm going to use also have modes for long or short pull, and you simply rotate the speed dial to select the mode required. For the rear roller brake, I'll move the adjuster with the cable barrel holder as close to the pivot as possible for a short pull, and for the front disc, I'll move it outwards for a long pull. If I need to compensate for rear wheel lockup, I can simply change the position of the lever. So I've got the new tire installed and will install the roller brake that I ordered up. Since I'm throwing away the old roller brake, I thought it would be interesting to take it apart to see exactly how it works. To disassemble the roller brake, use a flat blade screwdriver and remove the metal cover from the roller brake. And then remove the large retaining spring. Then there's a smaller clip spring. The arm plate and actuator that transfers the force from the brake cable can then be removed. At this point, you can see when the actuator arm is pulled, the rollers move the brake shoes outward, thus creating the stopping motion. Anyway, next I'll move on to reinstalling the rear wheel in the bike, remembering that the non-turning axle washers are side-specific. For this bike, the yellow washer was installed on the left-hand side. As I mentioned before, the original chain had too much slack and was most likely stretched. And with the new chain on the bottom, you can see how much the old one was stretched. So I'll install the new chain, noting which way the quick link should face, and go for about 1/2 inch of slack in the chain. Next, I have the new gear cable installed and will reconnect it to the hub. With the gear cable reattached to the hub, it's easy to adjust the cable by ensuring the shifter is in the 4th gear and aligning the 2 yellow dots on the shifter plate. If adjustment is required, simply move the barrel adjuster the required amount. Next, I'll install the new brake cable and install the lock nut, which will connect to the roller brake actuator arm. Shimano recommends 99 mm between the barrel adjuster and the lock nut. To connect the brake cable, pull down on the actuator arm and insert the lock nut in the slot aligning the red dot on the lock nut with the groove on the plate, and then reconnect the barrel adjuster. And finally, I'll check the brake handle clearance, and in this case it looks pretty good. Once I get the bike out for a test ride, it's easy to adjust the clearance just by moving the speed dial on the handle, as I mentioned before. Next, I'll move on to installing a new front brake cable and housing. With the front brake cable installed, I'll check for the brake handle clearance, and again it looks pretty good. With the brakes done, I'll install the seat tube using waterproof marine grease to ensure the post doesn't get stuck in the future. Next, I'll grease the roller brake by removing the grease cap. I was not able to find an equivalent grease type for the roller brake, so I will use the recommended Shimano grease. Shimano recommends 5 grams of grease be applied, and not knowing how much to use from the grease bottle, I'll use a 10 mm syringe and fill it to the 5 mm mark, making for an easy application of the grease. There's a couple of things to note about how an internal gear hub shifts. First, You can shift to any gear at any time, even when stopped, which makes shifting very convenient. And it's recommended to take the pressure off the pedal stroke while shifting to ensure smooth shifts and no damage to the gear hub. So I think this build turned out pretty good, keeping true to the original specs of the bike. The internal 8-speed hub makes for low maintenance shifting, and the design combined with the high pressure tires makes for a really smooth, comfortable ride. And you might even say this bike exudes purposeful elegance, but you can be the judge of that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.